Hello and welcome to our Good Friday family service. Thank you for joining me. Today we're going to be looking at what Jesus did for us over Easter, starting at Matthew 26 when he was anointed at Bethany, going all the way through to Matthew chapter 27 of his burial. I hope you enjoy today. In the last time at Junior Church, we looked at when the people welcomed Jesus with celebration and thanksgiving through shouting Hosanna and waving their palms. Today we're going to look at what happened to Jesus and how things drastically changed for him over the course of Easter. And here we go. So we're going to start off in Matthew chapter 26 verses 6 to 16. While Jesus was in Bethany in the home of a man known as Simon the leper, a woman came to him with an alabaster jar of very expensive perfume, which she poured on his head as he was reclining at the table. When the disciples saw this, they were indignant. "Why this waste?" they asked. "The perfume could have been sold at a high price and the money given to the poor." Aware of this, Jesus said to them, "Why are you bothering this woman? She has done a beautiful thing to me. The poor will always have with you, but you will not always have me. When she poured this perfume on me, she did it to prepare me for burial." The one of the 12, the one called Judas Iscariot, went to the chief priests and asked, "What are you to give me if I send him over to you?" They counted out for him 30 silver coins. From then on, Jesus watched for an opportunity to hand him over. The woman was devoted to Jesus, and she gave all that she had in the form of perfume and poured this out on him, whereas Judas gave Jesus over for money. I want you to find a coin, I want you to hold it into your hands. And I want you to ask yourself, what are you devoted to? What do you give your love to, your enthusiasm and your loyalty to? I want you to be really honest. Are you like the woman where you are devoted to Jesus in pouring out everything that you have? Or are you devoted to other things? Okay, so now we're going to go on to our next part, and you'll find this in Matthew chapter 26 verses 17 to 30, the Lord's Supper. On the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, the disciples came to Jesus and asked, "Where do you want us to make preparations for you to eat the Passover?" He replied, "Go into the city to a certain man and tell him, 'The teacher says, my appointed time is near. I am going to celebrate the Passover with my disciples at your house.'" So the disciples did as Jesus had directed them and prepared the Passover. When evening came, Jesus was reclining at the table with the 12, and while they were eating, he said, "I tell you the truth, one of you will betray me." They were very sad and began to say to him after one another, "Surely not I, Lord." Jesus replied, "The one who has dipped his hand into the bowl with me will betray me. The Son of Man will go just as it is written about him. But woe to that man who betrays the Son of Man. It would be better for him not to have been born." Then Judas, the one who would betray him, said, "Surely not I, Rabbi." Jesus answered, "Yes, it is you." While they were eating, Jesus took bread, gave thanks and broke it, and gave it to his disciples, saying, "Take and eat, this is my body." Then he took the cup, gave thanks, and offered it to them, saying, "Drink from it, all of you. This is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins. I tell you, I will not drink of this fruit of the vine from now until that day when I drink it anew with you in my Father's kingdom." When they had sung a hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives. Here, Jesus and his disciples were celebrating Passover. This is an extremely well-known story that the Jews would have celebrated each year as they remembered when God saved them from captivity in Egypt and parted the Red Sea. However, Jesus was giving a whole new meaning to this. We're now going to do an agape meal where we remember what Jesus did for us. If you have any bread or crackers in the house or some juice or some water, I want you to do this. And I want you to remember, as you're doing this with your family, that Jesus says that his body was broken for you. And when you're drinking your juice or your water, I want you to remember that his blood was also spilled for you. Okay, so we're going to look at our next part when Jesus is in the Garden of Gethsemane. And you'll find this in Matthew chapter 26, verses 36 to 46. Then Jesus went with his disciples to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to them, "Sit here while I go over there and pray." He took Peter and the 2 sons of Zebedee along with him, and he began to be sorrowful and troubled. Then he said to them, "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. Stay here and keep watch with me." Going a little further, he fell with his face to the ground and prayed, "My Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me, yet not as I will, but as you will." Then he returned to his disciples and found them sleeping. "Could you men not keep watch of me for 1 hour?" he asked Peter. "Watch and pray so that you will not fall into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the body is weak." He went away a second time and prayed, "My Father, if it is not possible for this cup to be taken away unless I drink it, may your will be done." When he came back again, he found them sleeping, because their eyes were heavy. So he left them and went away once more and prayed the third time, saying the same thing. Then he returned to his disciples and said to them, "Are you still sleeping and resting? Look, the hour is near, and the Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners. Rise, let us go. Here comes my betrayer." Often when we're in the garden, we're thinking of the sunshine, playing games, or hanging out with our family. However, when Jesus was in the garden, he went through utter agony, as he was wrestling with his Father on whether to obey him and die a death that we deserve. In the book of Luke, where he is a doctor, he records Jesus sweating drops of blood, showing us that Jesus went through utter agony and distress. Jesus chose the Father and his will. The disciples, later we see, were following their own will and did their own thing. Let's pray together now. What can wash away my sin? Nothing but the blood of Jesus. What can make me whole again? Nothing but the blood of Jesus. And oh, precious is the blood that makes me white as snow. No other fount I know. Nothing but the blood of Jesus. This is all my hope and peace. Nothing but the blood of Jesus. This is all my righteousness. Nothing but the blood of Jesus. And oh, precious is the blood that makes me white as snow. No other fount I know. Nothing but the blood of Jesus. And oh, precious is the blood that makes me white as snow. No other fount I know. Nothing but the blood of Jesus. So after praying that prayer, we're going to look at our next part. And this is found in Matthew chapter 27, verses 11 to 26. And it's Jesus before Pilate. Meanwhile, Jesus stood before the governor, and the governor asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" "Yes, it is as you say," Jesus replied. When he was accused by the chief priests and the elders, he gave no answer. Then Pilate asked him, "Don't you hear the testimony they're bringing against you?" But Jesus made no reply, not even to a single charge, to the great amazement of the governor. Now it was the governor's custom at the feast to release a prisoner chosen by the crowd. At that time they had a notorious prisoner called Barabbas. So when the crowd had gathered, Pilate asked them, "Which one do you want me to release to you?" Barabbas or Jesus, who is called Christ? For he knew it was out of envy that they had handed Jesus over to him. While Pilate was sitting on the judge's seat, his wife sent to him a message. Don't have anything to do with it, the innocent man, for I have suffered a great deal today in a dream because of him. But the chief priests and the elders persuaded the crowd to ask for Barabbas and to have Jesus executed. Which of the two do you want me to release to you? Asked the governor. Barabbas, they answered. What shall I do then with Jesus who is called Christ? Pilate asked. They all answered, Crucify him. Why? What crime has he committed? Asked Pilate. But they shouted all the louder, Crucify him. When Pilate saw that he was getting nowhere, but that instead an uproar was starting, he took water and washed his hands in front of the crowd. I am innocent of this man's blood, he said. It is your responsibility. All the people answered, Let his blood be on us and our children. Then he released Barabbas to them, but he had Jesus flogged and handed him over to be crucified. Pilate knew that the people had condemned a sinless man, but instead of doing the right thing, he condemned Jesus. In verse 24, we see that Pilate tried washing his hands to get rid of his guilt. However, guilty hearts cannot be washed away with soap and water. I want you to either do a black mark on your hand or imagine a black mark on your hand. It reminds us of all the wrong that we have done. We can try to rub it away, and we can try really hard, but it won't rub away. We cannot get rid of sin ourselves. Matthew chapter 27, verses 32, the crucifixion. As they were going out, they met a man from Cyrene named Simon, and they forced him to carry the cross. They came to a place called Golgotha, which means a place of the skull. There they offered Jesus wine to drink mixed with gall, but after tasting it he refused to drink it. When they had crucified him, they divided up his clothes by casting lots, and sitting down they kept watch over him there. Above his head they placed a written charge against him. This is Jesus, the King of the Jews. 2 robbers were crucified with him, one on his right and one on his left. Those who passed by hurled insults at him, shaking their heads and saying, You who are going to destroy the temple and build it in 3 days, save yourself. Come down from the cross, if you are the Son of God. In the same way, the chief priests, the teacher of the law, and the elders mocked him. He saved others, they said, but he can't save himself. He is the King of Israel. Let him come down now from the cross, and we will believe in him. He trusts in God. Let God rescue him now if he wants him. For he said, I am the Son of God. In the same way, the robbers who were crucified with him also heaped insults on him. Jesus hung on the cross and took the punishment for the wrong that we have done. Sin cost Jesus his life. Jesus chooses to forgive if we acknowledge what he did, ask for forgiveness, and turn around and start again. At this point, I want you to take some paper and a pen, and I want you to write down what you have done wrong and what you need forgiveness for. So we come to the death of Jesus, Matthew chapter 27, verses 45. From the 6th hour until the 9th hour, darkness came over all the land. About the 9th hour, Jesus cried out in a loud voice, Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani, which means, my God, why have you forsaken me? When some of those standing there heard this, they said, He's calling Elijah. Immediately one of them ran out and got a sponge. He filled it with wine vinegar, put it on a stick, and offered it to Jesus to drink. The rest said, Now leave him alone. Let's see if Elijah comes to save him. And when Jesus had cried out again in a loud voice, he gave up his spirit. At that moment the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. The earth shook and the rocks split. The tomb broke open, and the bodies of many holy people who had died were raised to life. They came out of the tomb, and after Jesus resurrected, they went into the holy city and appeared to many people. When the centurion and those who were with him guarding Jesus saw the earthquake and all that had happened, they were terrified and exclaimed, Surely he was the Son of God. When Jesus died, the temple curtain that separated God's holy presence from the people was torn in two. I want you to imagine what was happening at this moment. I want you to imagine the sound of rocks splitting and the earth shaking and crumbling. Now, because of Jesus' death, we have access to God's presence. Our sin is dealt with, and we can have a relationship. If you have some foil at home, I want you to get it in your hands, and I want you to tear it into two. What seemed so impossible to break, Jesus broke at the cross. He broke the curtain that separated us from his Holy Spirit. And now each of us have access to have a relationship with him. So now we come to our last part of the burial of Jesus, and you'll find this in Matthew chapter 27, verses 47. As evening approached, there came a rich man from Arimathea named Joseph, who had himself become a disciple of Jesus. Going to Pilate, he asked for Jesus' body, and Pilate ordered that it be given to him. Joseph took the body, wrapped it in clean linen cloth, and placed it in a new tomb that had been cut out of the rock. He rolled a big stone in front of the entrance to the tomb and went away. Mary Magdalene and the other woman were sitting there, opposite the tomb. So as we come to our last part on Good Friday, if possible, I want you to find a heart, cut out a heart, and either imagine placing this at the foot of the cross, or make a cross like this. And as Jesus showed his love for us, I want you to show your love back to him, whether that's for a second time, or whether that's for the first time. Thank you for joining me on Good Friday. I hope you've been able to journey with me through what Jesus did for us on Easter. However, of course, we haven't come to the last part of this story, when Jesus rose again and resurrected, and we will be celebrating this together on Easter Sunday. Thank you for today. See you next time. I cast my mind to Calvary, where Jesus bled and died for me. I see his wounds, his hands, his feet, my Savior on that cursed tree. His body bound and drenched in tears, they laid him down in Joseph's tomb, the entrance sealed by heavy stone. Messiah still and all alone. Oh, praise the name of the Lord our God. Oh, praise his name forevermore. For endless days we will sing your praise, oh Lord our God. Then on the first, at break of dawn, the Son of Heaven rose again. Oh,